Time for another episode of Circle of Trades. I am Todd Studer in studio today. Travis Waldstein, Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning, Waldstein Plumbing. Are you trying to make a cave or something where you're at? Things look a little bit dark there today.
Yeah, it's because I moved my Hawkeye light. See, I got my Hawkeye light over the left shoulder, and I've got Air Serv and Waldstein Plumbing over my right shoulder. So that's what the deal is. Like I said, yeah. So I got another light coming for over here today. So that's probably a short term deal. So everybody's been trying to put a picture frame in my office. So I'm just going to get a big digital picture frame. So so I could have some stuff in here. So I've been doing some remodels. So it's not complete yet. So yeah. So if I look a little bit dark today, I mean, I could take that off. You can see my balding head, but I'm going to not do that. So
you got the Tiger Hawk lit up, and your face is kind of dark. I call that a win all the way around.
There you go. So that way, when I said my franchise means, they can see the Waldstein plug, because that'll make everybody very happy. So my corporate loves it that I'm not a Mr. Rooter. Let me tell you. So
So here's a bowl, and here's hey Travis, what you up to? Oh, nothing. I'm not up to anything.
I would never stir the pot. I got my Hawkeye flag. I just put it over my left shoulder, so I mean it's still here. I mean,
it looks good.
Just a little rearranging. So different view. We'll see. I wait for the Mr. Rooter guys to see the Waldstein Plumbing stuff and go, "What the hell's that?" I'd be like, "Sorry guys." So I'll tell you. So, but
it's been the temperature's been going up. I know that humidity's been going up too, and that's had my air conditioner running. Is that a common thing?
Yes, absolutely. Finally, I would say, boy, I went out to Seattle last week, which that's a story in itself. But just before we went to Seattle, you started feeling the humidity kick in, and now they've had all the rain. I mean, it's rained a ton, which is good. We need the rain. I mean, it's kind of sucks for getting plumbing projects done outside underground work, but the plumbing, the HVAC systems are definitely running. Cottonwood is starting to fly at some level, which is pretty typical. If you live anywhere near water, if you got cottonwood trees, when you see that white stuff floating in the sky, that is called cottonwood. So
I saw it. I saw it on the way in this morning.
Yeah. So you got some cottonwood going on. I mean, it is what it is, if you know what I'm saying. So, so it's the time of year, maintenance is important. Keep your filters clean, keep your coils clean. Some customers, we don't do their maintenance till June or July because of the cottonwood. So maintenance is not so we have to do the first year. We like to. We try to call people in April, and they don't like to return calls till like the first day gets more. Oh, I didn't give him maintenance. And I said, yeah, we've been trying to get it done for 2 months. It's that whole proactive versus reactive thing, that we have going on. So, that always makes for very happy customers. So
I'm assuming that you've got folks getting units clogged up with the cottonwood stuff that don't even have cottonwoods in the neighborhood.
Oh, no. Yeah, absolutely. Cottonwood, dirt, if you got construction dust, lawnmowers, there's always the kid or the old man that gets too close to the weed whacker to the, copper line or, to the electrical, those are always the famous, oh, yeah, there's always that kind of stuff going on. So, it's the time of year for things. It's also the time of year where, things are mechanical and they'll fail. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. As far as, as far as equipment goes, I mean, motors quit, bearings quit, but a lot of that comes back to heat. Heat creates wear and tear. Heat creates, stuff to break down. That's the reality of it. So, unfortunately, it's part of what we do as far as what we deal with in the industry. That's the thing. And if, everybody understands, there's nothing cheaper. Everything's going up all the time between, $5 diesel fuel. I mean, I was pretty happy to fill up at $4.84 the other day. So, I got a diesel taken home that I'm going to get down below $4 a gallon before I go fill that thing again. So, I don't need it that bad at the house, but I have a Bobcat, a couple other things I do like to have some diesel around. So I mean, it's all affected. But but back to HVAC. I mean, heat. Heat and temperatures. I mean, it adds up, and equipment is. I won't say scarce. Equipment is sort of scarce. Some parts are going to be um, less sparse. Sparse, if you know what I'm saying. So,
Mhm.
so there is some issues with that. You know, if you have if you got a system that's over 10, 12 years old, it's an R22 system, and you have a major failure, I mean, I'll call for what it is. I mean, can you fix it? Yes. Are you money ahead to fix it? No. I mean, I would love to sugarcoat it. And, if you got R410 is the refrigerator we've been using for the last 20 years, which they're no longer manufacturing units with R410A. It depends on the age of the unit. Um, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a refrigerant circus. DuPont isn't making enough money, so DuPont's got to get the government to change their laws so they can sell more refrigerant. Or Honeywell or whoever else makes the refrigerant. I mean, it's kind of like John Deere, where John Deere, and not wanting you to work in your own vehicles, because they want you to take it to the dealership.
Mhm.
I read something the other day, or maybe it was Daddy Trump that said it. That's something about Ford and Chevy and Chrysler, Dodge or Ram, whatever it is now, is trying to get something pushed through Congress, and something about your right to work on equipment. So it's like, so it's getting, it's getting pretty bad when, the dealerships don't want you as the owner to be able to work in your own stuff. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Except that, the dealerships need to figure out a way to keep their hands in your pockets. So, I don't like to do that with HVAC. I like to use universal parts when we can, but sometimes with the equipment, you have to use what the manufacturer specifies, and sometimes it's the benefits not, but it's just part of it's part of the industry as a whole. Not only auto industry but the HVAC industry as well. Plus you into that some of the price increases that are happening across the board. I mean, parts has doubled in price. Equipment, I mean, we just had another 8% price increase. May 20th, whatever it was. I thought it was the 8th, but it'd be May 20th. And so, unfortunately, if you're waiting for this stuff to go back down, yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. If you know what I'm saying, I don't think that it's kind of like the housing market. Everybody's waiting for the housing market to crash. I think that ship's done sailed, and unless something extremely bad happens, I don't think it's going to come back to what it was. Let's say 10 years ago, if that makes sense. So
It does, and I've actually the house that I sold coming up on 4 years ago now. It actually was 4 years ago. And I thought at the time that we were at the maximum value, and gee, I was wrong. But I still get reports on that property because I never shut those reports off. I was getting them for a while because I knew I was going to be selling, and they're still coming in. And I'm starting to see it tick backwards a little bit, but not like a huge move, just a little bit from comps that are in the neighborhood. And I think that's what all of that is based off of. So I'm seeing it. It's looking like it's more stabilized than it was, but I don't ever see it going back down to, because I'll just tell you the numbers. I mean, right now it's saying that the house is listed at 216. I bought this house in 2015 for $79,000.
yeah, so
You know,
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. My son owned one on Damas Street, and to me, when he bought it, I know he paid for it. And I'm like, that house isn't worth $80,000 as it sits. But when he bought it in 2020, the pricing market was like $160,000. I'm like, you're freaking high. But then you went and looked at the other houses in the neighborhood where they're 120, 130, 140. I'm like, these are $60,000 houses. What are we talking about here? But that just kind of shows you. But the market really jumped. I don't want to say overnight, but it didn't
it was
take long
fast.
for that market to increase. So
Well,
absolutely. So
you'd mentioned before about is it cost effective to repair one of those older units as opposed to just replacing? And you're saying no. Let me ask you this: if somebody has a older unit and going back, I don't know, 20 years, still operational, still blowing cold air,
mm.
is it advantageous for them to start looking as a preemptive measure of possibly replacing it now?
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to tell you. This is my opinion
Mm-hmm.
doing this. When you start talking about 20-year-old units in R22 and you have a refrigerant repair involved, let's say you're adding refrigerant to it, you have a coil that's leaking, you got a reversing valve, you have something that's leaking on the system. I would love to tell you that can it be fixed? Yes. But with the cost of refrigerant and just the equipment, to get you an example, we had a unit here recently, the R22 unit, customer what it costs to repair it. R22 compressor, my cost was like $2,500. 2 years ago, the same compressor was $1,100. The reason being is they're not making that R22 compressor anymore. They've, we looked at it aftermarket, and the aftermarket price wasn't any better. So part of the problem is, is the components because of what it is. The components are getting more expensive because they're not building them like they were 5 or 10 years ago. So, and that's kind of what's happened in a lot of industries. We've gone from having plenty of stock on the shelf and building stuff to whatever. We do this just in time manufacturing, which is great. But also, what happens with that just in time manufacturing is you have just enough, around to be able to do the job. And so sometimes, you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks. It's not that it's not necessarily available or not available. They maybe just have to produce it. And if they got to produce 400 of compressor A, and yours is compressor B, and they're only going to make, they're only going to build 10 of them compressors. Well, guess what? There's a lot more commodity in compressor A and what they're going to sell at a price versus what they're doing with compressor B, because they know that compressor B is probably going to sit around longer. And number two, because of the cost for them to build it, that's going to drive up the cost for your manufacturer as far as that goes. So I mean, realistically, that's part of uh, so that's part of the cost. Now, can we fix it? Yes. If it's a fan motor or condenser fan motor or contactor, can you repair it? Absolutely. And in that case, it's kind of a whatever. Has the thing been taken care of? Has the outdoor unit been beat to hell by hail? Are the fins flat on the thing? I mean, there's more than one factor. So I won't say 100% you have to. There becomes a point of, when the age of the unit gets to be X, and if the cost of the repair, if the cost of the repair times the age of the unit equals more than $5,000, there's a scenario out there, and I've ran it to where it really makes sense to look hard at, replacement versus repair. But then you also got to take a look at the other side. There's an economic side to this too. I mean, where someone may or may not be able to afford to repair it, or be able to afford to replace it. So, what are your options? And that gets to be a different conversation, just because you never know what someone's finances are. We got like 5 different forms of financing that we offer. If they want to replace, or even if they want to repair it, but everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? So it's I mean, obviously, if you have the cash to pay for the repair or pay for the replacement, it makes sense. Great, but if it doesn't, then that's where you just gotta kind of weigh things out as far as the what the manufacturer, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
and as a consumer, I mean, I say the consumer ultimately, you know, I've had arguments with people before. I was to say, hey, the unit's 4 years old. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a little bit noisy, but it runs. It cools the house. Great. I'm not going to say tell you wrong. Now, it's probably going to cost you more to operate it just because of the technology at that time. I mean, you might be paying $400 a month for that unit to run versus $200 for a new unit. But listen, if you don't want to spend the $5,000 to $9,000 that an air conditioner could cost, now, I mean, depends on the size of the house and what we got to do. I mean, that makes a huge difference as far as that goes. So, When you start talking that kind of money, for an AC, 10 years ago, you could buy an entire system for that same cost. The money, and I've talked about this before, the cost of a dollar. The value of the dollar is less, and so you're going to pay more for that same product. That's just the reality of business. $100 bill today is not what it was worth 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, just go to the grocery store if you don't believe me. Show me what $100 buys you. Then go see what $300 buys you.
Yeah.
That'll tell you right there. That's not Travis being a jerk or Travis trying to price gouge anybody. That's just economics. Even at the fuel market, which the whole fuel thing is kind of inflation, but I mean, they know what their sweet spot is as far as making money, and I can promise you this, they're making money at $4 an hour, $4.55 a gallon for diesel fuel, but there's an economic downside to where it's affecting them too. I mean, there is such thing as being able to make too much money on a product, and petroleum products is one of them, to where if you're too far out of whack, it actually creates a reverse effect on the entire economy. I mean, if you're to a point that's slowing down the entire economy, then people aren't buying your products. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's a balance, like anything else. You got to make the decision that's best for you, the consumer. If the equipment's north of 15 years old, I will tell you that we need to at least have a discussion. If it's more than a $500 repair and it's more than 15 years old, we need to at least have the discussion. I'm not against repairing it. There's a lot of times we repaired it, but I don't want to make a repair now, then turn around 6 months, a year from now, have to do another repair that costs just as much or more. And so now maybe you got, instead of $500, you've got $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 into a 17-year-old air conditioner, or furnace and AC that you could have put towards a new system that's under warranty, that shouldn't break down. I say shouldn't because everything's mechanical. Anything can break that's mechanical, but that's the reality. So as far as the equipment, so and that's the discussion, because at the end of the day, it's your money. Whoever the consumer is. My job is to give recommendations, and I will tell you what I would personally do. But just because I would do something doesn't mean that every consumer is going to do something. They might have a different mindset. They might be selling the house in a year, and sometimes that will change the conversation as far as what we're going to do. And you have to be open to that kind of. You can't be just such bullheaded that it has to be. So I'm inclined. I'm fine to repair it, but I hate to see people spend. If you got a 20-year-old unit and the compressor's $2,500, you're a fool if you repair the unit. But some people, it's ran out. The next one ain't gonna run another 25 years. I can promise you that. So that's mechanics for you. That old 4020 John Deere that's now considered an antique is from the 1960s. Great tractor back in the day, but that you're gonna do a lot more repairs on that tractor long term. I mean, if you understand that. Same thing with an old car. You buy a 68, 67, 68 Camaro or Chevelle or Duster, or whatever, whatever you had for a vehicle, guess what? There's a part just sitting on the shelf for that, anymore. I mean, there is to an extent, but there's a reason that they come out with new model years of cars and improved features and warranties and efficiency. There's reasons they come out with all that. So, and you may not agree with it, but that's the reality of just not what I do, but economics. So,
did you just refer to a duster?
Yes. Yeah. I gotta bite my head. A duster demon, like I said, old 69 or 70, Plymouth, what is Superbird, with the old wing in the back. So, so I mean, like I said, when I grew up, those are kind of the cars that cool to have that were around, what I'm saying, like I said, your old Chevy or an old, Mopar, so.
No, it seemed like everybody I knew was either driving an Oldsmobile or, the Cutlass or the Buick Regal or, Pontiac had the Grand Prix back then that had that same.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I had a, like I said, I had a good, let's say, a '79 Pontiac that I took off a T section between Spencer and Everly, Iowa, on an ice storm, and the car went like this, and I still drove it. Yeah, they don't do very well going off of T sections. I know that's a shock. So.
Well, what do you think? You want to dive into local politics, or do you want to leave it alone?
Oh, I don't. Like I said, as far as today goes, like I said, I'll stick away from Bow Wow Patrol for that.
Yeah, yeah, we're new. They were trying to get the pit bull ordinance revoked, and it didn't happen. The council upheld it, and as we're talking right now, I'm seeing a lot of outrage online. Let's just say that, and I don't know. I'm not an expert in this industry. I know people that are. But
I got one thing to say about it. Okay. You got people up in arms about, there's a feral cat problem in Council Bluffs. Okay, people up in arms, and we got to do this with feral cats. But then we have the Antichrist. I guess I should say Antichrist, but the anti-pit bull people. I'm neither for or like I said. I think a lot. Yeah, you can make an argument for your DNA, and whatever else. The dog's prone to blah, 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 blah. A lot of it has to do with how do you train your dog. It's like, how do you train your kid? Do you make your kid pick up his room? Do you make him do his dishes? Do you make him do the laundry? Go outside, or do you let him sit on his ass and play video games all day long and push you around and you coddle him? I'll say it. I don't care. There's a lot of people that are coddled, kids in this world. And do you wonder why they turn out to be terrible adults? Well, guess what? Sorry, you raised them. You're the one who taught them or her to be that way, either because you freaking beat in their head so hard that they shouldn't be that way that they decide to rebel, or B, they're just that lazy that they just don't want to conform, whichever it is. So now that I've pissed off all the parents because I said that you're all terrible parents, so we'll come back to the dog deal. You know what? It's how do you train do you teach your dog to potty train? Do you teach your cat to potty train? That kind of stuff. Do you give your dog raw meat and let him go out and teach him to go attack, or do you train your dog to be decent, for lack of a better word? And everyone's terms of decent's a little bit different, but I mean, I've got it's not a lab, but I've got a German short hair boxer mix by the name of Zoe. It don't listen to my wife for squat at home, but this dog's 120 pounds, and here's what I can tell you. She likes hanging outside with me. Now, if my wife's out there, she takes off and runs and whatever. So, she used to kill chickens. She knows if she wants to come run with me, she can't kill chickens. She likes to sniff them once in a while, but she is like, nope, you can't the chickens. And, she knows she needs to stay close to me. And, I let her do her dog thing and whatever. We got a place out back to where they can run, so there's, they got that area in the backyard too. But, it's all about how you train. If you have take people that go to dog shows and people that train your cats, a lot of it has to do about the training and the expectation, and, if you're timid of dogs, which I know some people are or whatever, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't like the idea of jumping in shark infested waters too, but people have to go to the ocean all the time and it doesn't seem to be a problem, do you ban sharks? Do you outlaw sharks because, you jumped in the ocean and you might have got bit by a shark? That's not how this works, folks. So I think it comes down to it. I think you said, well, you didn't say it. You said somebody had said it, that I think the people from the city are worried about liability, which is probably 100% spot on. That's the city's directive. Do I agree with it? No, but I'll be the first one to tell you that I got yelled at a month ago in Baumgars because I made a comment about some of the city and they didn't like it, and I was not, and this guy knows who he is, and he's like, says, I like to talk smack. I said, and I wasn't going to fight with him in Baumgart's. I'm friends with the manager, and I'm not going to sit there and raise a scene with him. But the reality is, I don't think I think the city probably didn't make the right move here. But you know what? I live in a county, so it doesn't matter what I think. So I work. My shop's in town. I got lots of employees live in town. We pay taxes, whatever else. But at the end of the day, when it comes time to vote for an elected official, in the city, I got no say in it. There's nothing I can do. I mean, I can go pee all I want, but the way I can change his vote, and I can't vote. So it's like, well, so hopefully they'll come to a compromise and figure this out for people who want to have pit bulls. But at the same time, I think the people that have these dogs, any dog or any cat, it's like feral cats. You have a responsibility. But everybody forgets. Everybody talks about their rights. I have the right to free speech. I have a right to do this. I have a right to carry a gun. I have a right to do this. What's your responsibility as a citizen to be able to carry that? You just don't have the ability, or how do I say this? So you don't have, just because you have the right doesn't mean, if you don't take a responsibility, people get their rights taken away if you're not responsible about it. So, if someone's got a dog that they can't control, and if the animal control's got to take the dog away, that happens. So that's how I look at it. So
now, moral of the story, don't let your dogs play video games.
I can't. Well, kids. Yeah,
Well,
I hate
actually,
it.
it was a mutual friend
dogs.
of ours that said that, and I'll put it the way that he said it, is that shitty people have shitty dogs. And
Amen.
and then he said, and it's the same thing with kids. Shitty parents have shitty kids. That's how he put it. And I think there might be a lot of truth in that. So
yeah, there's a ton of truth to that. So, I 100% agree with that. If you don't like the product, that you can either bitch about it or you can make it better. Take your pick. You know what I'm saying? So
makes sense to me.
That's how I look at it. So as far as for what it is. So I mean, if I don't like something the employee's doing, you work with the employee. And if they can't figure out what they need to do, then sometimes you have to make a change. Right. Do I enjoy that? No. Do I, if something's not working at home and I'm tired of it, or my wife's tired of it and she's chewing my butt, at some point, you're going to fix the problem. That's how it is. My wife bitched about my gate for a year because she didn't like the way it latched. 2 weeks ago, I don't remember if I went to Home Depot or I went to Menards, and I bought a different gate latch, and I put it on. It took me about 45 minutes. My wife loves it. I love it so much, I ended up putting 2 more of them on. So, because it worked out so much. She's like, this is great. Why didn't we do it 2 years ago? Because you didn't want me to do it 2 years ago. But now she wanted me to do it. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, got to help yourself sometimes, folks.
Well, all true, and great tips today. We got anything else hanging out there that we need to solve before the world gets their problems back?
Well, I got to go deal with the LinkedIn situation right after this. So if you're not on LinkedIn, evidently there's some people at my corporate office that don't appreciate some of the stuff that I put on LinkedIn, but I'm glad to know that's getting noticed. As I say, I'm going to speak my piece. You may not agree with it. So
yeah, that is true. That is very true. He is Travis Waldstein. I am Todd Studer. This is Circle of Trades. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Hit like, share, and follow, and we can get even more folks seeing all the content here. We'd be very grateful if you would. So
the world according to Travis. So
there you go. All right, my man. We'll see you soon.
All right, let's see ya.